Sitemaps. There are two major types of sitemaps: HTML sitemaps and XML sitemaps. If you experience crawling and indexing issues, keep in mind that sitemaps are just a patch for more serious problems such as duplicate content, thin content, or improper internal linking architecture. Creating sitemaps is a good idea, but it won't fix those issues. HTML sitemaps. HTML sitemaps are a form of secondary navigation. They are usually accessible to people and bots through a link placed at the bottom of the website in the footer. A usability study on a mix of websites, including e-commerce websites, found that people rarely use HTML sitemaps. Still, HTML sitemaps are very useful for sending crawlers to pages at the lower levels of the website taxonomy and for creating flat internal linking. Here are some HTML sitemap crawl optimization tips. Use segmented sitemaps. When optimizing HTML sitemaps for crawling, it's important to remember that PageRank is divided between all the links on a page. Splitting the HTML sitemap into multiple, smaller parts is a good way to create more user and search engine friendly pages for large websites such as e-commerce websites. Instead of a huge sitemap page that links to almost every page on your website, create a main sitemap index page, for example sitemap.html, and link from it to smaller sitemap component pages, for example sitemap-1.html and sitemap-2.html. You can split the HTML sitemaps based on topics, categories, departments, or brands. Start by listing your top categories on the index page. The way you split the pages depends on the number of categories, subcategories, and products in your catalog. You can use the 100 links per page rule as a guideline, but don't get stuck on this number, especially if your website has good authority. If you have more than 100 top-level categories, you should display the first 100 of them on the sitemap index page and the rest on additional sitemap pages. You can allow users and search engines to navigate the sitemap using previous and next links. If you have fewer than 100 top-level categories in the catalog, you will have room to list several important subcategories as well, as you can see in this screenshot. The top-level categories are photography, computers and solutions, and pro audio. Since this business has a limited number of top-level categories, there is room for several subcategories, for example, digital cameras, laptops, or recording. Don't link to redirects. The URLs linked from sitemap pages should land crawlers on the final URLs rather than going through URL redirects. Enrich the sitemap pages. Adding a bit of extra data by annotating links with info is good for users and can provide some context for search engines as well. You can add data such as product thumbnails, customer ratings, manufacturer names, and so on. These are just some suggestions for HTML sitemaps so that you can make the pages easier for people to read and very lightly linked for crawlers. XML sitemaps. Modern e-commerce platforms should auto-generate XML sitemaps, but many times the default file is not optimized for crawling and analysis. It's therefore important to manually review and optimize the automated output or to generate the sitemaps on your own rules. Unless you have concerns about competitors spying on your URL structure, it's preferable to include the path of the XML sitemap file within the robots.txt file. Robots.txt is requested by search engines every time they start a new crawling session on your website. It is analyzed to see if it was modified since the last crawl. If not, then search engines will use the existing robots.txt cached file to determine which URLs are allowed to be crawled. If you don't specify the location of your XML sitemap inside robots.txt, then search engines won't know where to find it unless you submit it within the webmaster accounts. If you have an almost 100% indexation rate, you probably don't need to worry about crawl optimization. Using XML sitemaps seems to have an accelerating effect on crawl rate. At first, the number of visits was stabilized at a rate of 20 to 30 pages per hour. As soon as the sitemap was uploaded through Webmaster Central, the crawler accelerated to approximately 500 pages per hour. In just a few days, it reached a peak of 2,224 pages per hour. Where at first the crawler visited 26.59 pages per hour on average, it grew to an average of 1,257 pages per hour, which is an increase of no less than 4,630%. Here are some tips for optimizing XML sitemaps for large websites. Add only URLs that respond with 200 OK. Too many errors, and search engines will stop trusting your sitemaps. Bing has, and I quote, a 1% allowance for dirt in a sitemap. Examples of dirt are if we click on a URL and we see a redirect, a 404 or 500 code. If we see more than 1% level of dirt, we begin losing trust in the sitemap. Google is less stringent than Bing and say that they don't care about the errors in the sitemap. Have no links to duplicate content and no URLs that canonicalize to different URLs. Place videos, images, news, and mobile in separate sitemaps. Segment the sitemaps by topic or category and by subtopic or subcategory. For example, you can have a sitemap for your camping category, another one for your bicycles category, and another one for the running shoes category. This segmentation doesn't directly improve organic rankings, but it will help identify indexation issues at granular levels. Create separate sitemap files for product pages. Fix sitemap errors before submitting your files to search engines. You can do this within your Google Search Console account using the Test Sitemap feature. Keep language-specific URLs in separate sitemaps. Don't assign the same weight to all pages. Your scoring can be based on update frequency or other business rules. Auto-update the sitemaps whenever new important URLs are created. Include only URLs that contain essential and important filters. You probably noticed a commonality within these tips. It's segmentation. It's a good idea to split your XML files as much as you can without overdoing it, so you can identify and fix indexation issues more easily. Keep in mind that sitemaps, either XML or HTML, should not be used as a substitute for poor website architecture or other crawlability issues, but only as a backup. Make sure that there are other paths for crawlers to reach all important pages on your website. Let's talk about some factors that can influence the crawl budget. The first factor is popularity. Crawlers will request pages more frequently if they find more external and internal links pointing to them. Most e-commerce websites experience challenges building links to category and product detail pages, but this has to be done. Guest posting, giveaways, link bait, evergreen content, ambassadors programs, and perpetual holiday category pages are just some of the tactics that can help with link development. Crawl rate settings. You can alter the crawl rate of Googlebot using your Google Search Console account. However, changing the rate is not advisable unless the crawler slows down your web server. With Bing's crawl control feature, you can even set up day parting. Fresh content. Updating content on pages and then pinging search engines, for example by creating feeds for products and category pages, should get the crawlers to the updated content relatively quickly. If you update fewer than 300 URLs per month, you can use the Fetch as Google feature inside your Google Search Console account to get the updated URLs recrawled in a snap. Also, you can regularly create and submit a new XML sitemap just for the updated or for the new pages. There are several ways to keep your content fresh. For example, you can include an excerpt of about 100 words from related blog posts on product detail pages. Ideally, the excerpt should include the product name and links to category pages. Every time you mention a product in a new blog post, update the excerpt of the product detail page as well. You can even include excerpts from articles that don't directly mention the product name if the article is related to the category in which the product can be classified. In this image, you can see how the From Our Blog section keeps this page updated and fresh. Another great tactic to keep the content fresh is to continuously generate user reviews, product questions and answers, or other forms of user-generated content. Rating and reviews are a smart way to keep pages updated, especially for products in high demand. Domain authority. The higher your website domain authority, the more visits search engine crawlers will pay. Your domain authority increases by pointing more external links to your website. This is a lot easier said than done. RSS feeds. RSS feeds are one of the fastest ways to notify search engines of new products, categories, or other types of fresh content on your website. Here's what Duane Forrester says about RSS feeds. Things like RSS are going to become a desired way for us to find content. It's a dramatic cost savings for us. You can get search engines to crawl the new content within minutes of publication with the help of RSS. For example, if you write content that supports category and product detail pages, and if you link smartly from these supporting pages, search engines will request and crawl the linked to product and category URLs as well. Zappos has an RSS feed for brands. Every time they add a new product from a brand, users and search engines are notified.